These are the various tools I'm going to be using for getting this window out today. You can see hammer, chisels and various knives for hacking out. The first thing you have to do when you're taking the window out is take the beading out. The longer edge on this window is actually the vertical edge, whereas usually you'll find it's the horizontal edge, and you really will find it easiest to start with the longest edge. So I'll show you how to do that now, but there's no way to do this without damaging the paintwork, and it's really painted in very far here. You know, you can't even see the profile of the beading at the bottom. So I'll show you how I do that. So I start by just taking the chisel up and down the edge between the beading and the door, and hopefully that will start to crack the paint, and I'll get a seam opening up. Door open. So I've started to get the crack there. Right, I've just felt this start to sort of be freed slightly. You can hear it go a bit, the wood moves. See? I'm going to slip in a thinner edge now. I quite like this one, so sort of hacking knife. It just goes in a little easier than a chisel once you've got the opening started. Now, it's not coming away here as well, which means there's a nail there. You have to try and get it all in one go, because otherwise you'll snap the beading. Again, this is where there's a nail, a pin. So I'm just working on that bit. I think they must be quite heavy duty pins. They normally move a bit easier than that. There. I can see the pin now, and it's more of a nail than a pin. So you see this bow, this is what you want, and because of the mitres at the corner and the nails, this is the only way to get the first piece of beading out. And this is why you start on the long edge, because it's far less likely to snap. Old beading, especially beading that's been put in and out a few times, will snap, and you just have to pin it back in place when you refit the window. You just use more nails, really. There it is, that's got it. So one of the nails is still in this beading, and one is pulled through and is still in the door. But that's that's how you get your first piece of beading out. And once you've got your first one out, the others are slightly easier. And the next thing you do is you mark up your beading so that you know which side of the window it's come out of, and I always put top and bottom. So top, and this is right hand side, and this is bottom. Now this is the edge where you can barely see where the beading joins to the door. So I'm taking an educated guess. And you can see it's opening up. Well, I don't know if you can, but I can see a hairline crack starting. So this may only have one nail in here because there doesn't appear to be a nail here. Right, that's not giving at all, so I'm going to start at this end and work towards it from the other end. The paint at this mitre hasn't cracked yet, not all the way. So normally these nails are really, they don't hold quite so strongly, but they're really quite thick nails. So all you can do is just keep wiggling until you work it loose. I wouldn't normally put anything between the beading and the glass because you are in danger of breaking the glass, but this is the broken piece, or one of the broken pieces. And I know that the pin will have been put in at this kind of angle, so what I'm trying to do is move the beading in that direction because that's the direction which is that I can take it out easiest. So not directly up, but at a slight angle, which hopefully you saw in the other nails that were in the other piece of beading. The other thing that happens with these nails is that they go rusty, and that makes them swell, which means it's even harder for them to come out. You want to try and do your levering without using this corner, because you will blunt this corner of the door, which is why I do a lot of wiggling with thin blades. Wow, this nail's really stuck fast. It will come in the end though, but you just don't want to break the beading. These are snips. Now that is one big nail. They shouldn't be nails, actually, they should be pins. So this seems to be where the nail is, and I can just see the head there. If you want to save the edge of the door, you can put a panel knife, a palette knife in, or a hacking knife, and then you're levering against this, not against the door. I'm using these snips a bit like pliers, basically. I'm not tall enough. Oh, can't find it. There it is. That's got it. Okay. Right. Beading will often only go back in the way it came out. So if you label it, it saves faffing about when you put it back in, trying to figure out which way it came out. Now, just need to remove this. There we are. It's painted in very firmly from this side. Again, at the bottom more so than at the top. So where the panels are broken, I'm going to just slip my hacking knife here to crack the paint joint, to just start the process of taking the glass out. But I wouldn't do that where the panels weren't already broken, because that's a real danger point. So I've just worked on this side of the door, and I've managed to do it with the camera turned off instead of on. So I'll try and explain what I've been doing. So what you don't want to do is put your blade between the door and the panel and lever, because you'll break the glass. So what you do is you go in a straight direction between the putty and the door. So that's a couple of mil away from the panel, and you tap with your knife and you open up the paint joint, because the paint joint will stop it coming out. Probably the putty's probably all dry now and not doing very much. And then you scrape. Once you've got somewhere to get your blade in, you start scraping, and you can feel as it starts to come away from the door, because old putty, it will come away quite easily. Putty sort of 60s, 1960s forward is much harder. So I have loosened up the top and sides. This joint is always harder because stained glass panels sink towards the bottom, and usually there's thicker paint here as well. So I haven't worked on this so much, and I'll show you what I do with that from the other side of the door. But I'm going to look at it from the inside now. This is very near to going, so I have to be really careful. I don't want any surprises. Right, that's got it now. And that's why I don't work on all three sides. And there it is. Now that the window's out, it's time to start hacking out the old putty. And just so you know, that window took about an hour to get out. They vary a lot. This is the sort of putty I like because it pops out. Like I say, it's very old and crumbly. If a window's been taken out and put back in, the putty can be extremely hard. And you can, I mean, I've done windows that have taken like 3 hours just to get the putty out. So this is what your rebate should look like. Nice and clean, and back to the wood. Sometimes you find that the putty is harder than the wood, and in hacking it out you're taking half the wood with you, and so I would suggest if the putty is good enough you leave that layer of putty in on a door like that, and if the rebate's deep enough, and then when you put the window back in you're fixing to that putty, because if you can't get that putty out, that putty is sound. So now I'm going to measure up for putting a piece of wood in place. So that's done now, and I'll come back and show you how to fit it after I've mended the window.